Hello, everybody. Hi, as you're coming in, thanks for joining us and welcome to another Sales Hacker webinar. I'm your host today. I'm Colin Campbell, the Director of Marketing at Sales Hacker, and I'm psyched about this one because I'm joined by two amazing people from Drift. If you haven't heard of Drift, like maybe put down the phone for a second and look around because they're transforming how people buy and sell right now. So I'm joined by Mark Killens. He's the VP of Content and Community at Drift. Mark, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Very excited about this one.
Same here. And also Michelle Peach on your right, our left. Michelle is the Senior Director of Conversational Sales at Drift. Michelle, thank you also for making the time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So what are we talking about today? We're talking about how to make conversations the cornerstone or like the core of your sales process. And when I first heard that, I thought like, okay, isn't all selling just really conversations, the right buyer, the right conversation at the right time? But then I thought about some more and I kind of figured like just because someone's talking doesn't mean it's actually a good conversation, right? And even just because you're having a conversation doesn't mean that's actually what's driving your sales process. So like ask yourself this, are you having conversations with buyers as a result of your sales process, or are the conversations really core to your sales process? Like, is that what's driving the whole thing forward? So I think it's kind of a nuanced difference. We're going to talk a little bit about how Drift does it today, and they're going to share their expert tips with you. Like they've done this from the ground up and learned and built this whole machine themselves. So talk about like how it provides amazing customer experience through the whole process, a framework for actually like how you have a good conversation, the golden rule of selling, a whole lot of stuff packed into this webinar, and I'm going to let them take it away. But before I do, I just want to say, I know you joined the live version for a reason. So right now, like you can ask questions. We want you to participate. You're not watching some recording later on. So go ahead and pop open the chat, pop open the Q&A, talk to each other, talk to us, ask questions, make sure we get as many answered as possible. And yeah, I'd love to just know who's here too, by the way. So like if you want to start by open the Q&A or open the chat, let us know. Hi, Jennifer from Bellingham, Washington.
Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining.
Melissa
from Miami.
Nice, nice. Yeah, no, this is gonna be a fun webinar. Thank you, Colin. We're gonna make it very conversational, to your point.
Yep.
And we really want you folks to think about how you can empower your customers and your buyers to lead the conversation instead of you having to lead the conversation, right? Like that's kind of like an overarching theme, I would say, Michelle, to the program today.
Yeah, absolutely. How you can have better conversations throughout your entire sales process.
Hello, Trevor, Stewart, Kristen. Hello, everyone. So let's dive right in.
Yeah, let's get into it. I'm psyched.
All right, so Michelle, we have a question for everyone, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So what was the last thing you folks purchased that was like a considered type purchase? It wasn't an impulse buy. It wasn't something that was, kind of transactional in nature. It could be in your work life. It could be in your personal life. I mean, you're going to talk about something soon that you recently bought.
Right.
That was considered.
Yes.
But this could be like a car.
Exactly. Something you think about, you have to think about financially. You probably have to get others involved before making that decision.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that, others involved.
Right.
We got Melissa saying a car.
Yep, exactly.
Tommy, a car.
Trevor bought a nice backpack.
Backpack.
That I would say. Oh, a boat.
That's different than a backpack. Yeah.
A tattoo.
Here we go. Yeah.
I like that. I would say even like, going to college.
Exactly.
It's a considered type purchase.
Think about it.
Investing in your education, investing in your career. We believe, and this is the reason why we're so excited to talk to you folks today, any type of considered purchase requires at least one, if not more than one conversation, Michelle.
Right.
You can't just buy something anymore today without having to do some type of research or talk to someone. And if you think about it, content is what I bet all of you folks are using as part of your sales or marketing process. And think of content as like a one-way type conversation. You're saying something, but it's not in a place where you can actually respond back to someone who's consuming that content right in that moment.
Right.
It's not very timely.
No.
With conversations, Michelle, it's two-way. It's two-way, and we believe that today, more than ever, to make conversations really the cornerstone of your sales process, marketing and sales has to join forces. I mean, you see this every day here at Drift. I'm more on the marketing side, conversational marketing side. Michelle's on the conversational sales side. How do you see us joining forces like right now today?
We collaborate with marketing more than I've ever seen in the sales and marketing organization. We work really closely with our VPs of marketing, yourself, on how to drive better conversations for our prospects and customers, but also make a better experience for the individuals that are coming to drift.com at any given time.
Because at the end of the day, isn't that what sales wants? Like, don't your sales team and like your sales folks want to have conversations with people?
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, if you're buying something like Drift, that's a considered purchase, like the things you folks sell, and actually let us know in the chat pane, what do you folks sell? Like, what do you actually sell?
Yeah, exactly.
We can try to contextualize this.
Right.
Be good. So we believe we need to join forces, and we believe that it needs to be more buyer-centric. So when you think about the education and content we're going to share with you folks over the next 45 minutes, have this lens on that is buyer-centric. So what do we have, Michelle? What are people selling?
Communications software. We have a SaaS platform, Ad Martech SaaS, employee recognition, a lot of SaaS out there.
Perfect.
Copywriting, a WeWork office space.
And most of those things are for sure considered purchases.
Yes,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month people are spending on these services or these software solutions.
Right.
Health insurance.
There's a lot out there. Yeah,
Love it.
So hardware. So we have a big mix of things out there.
All right, so let's dive right in. Here's what we've observed though. Michelle, you get pitched to a lot, right? Don't you get pitched
Constantly.
to a lot? I get pitched a lot of things. And when you think about it, the customer typically isn't the priority though when you get a cold email outreach. Mm-hmm. When you download something from someone's website that's a piece of content or a webinar, the company is putting you through their process, their sales motion, and they're probably optimizing for a specific metric.
Right.
Each person has their own kind of metric that they're optimizing for. Like, what's your metric, Michelle?
Revenue.
Your
right.
Mine
activity to revenue.
Activity to revenue. Mm-hmm. Mine though is marketing qualified accounts, like interested people, schedule conversations.
Right.
But at the end of the day, isn't like both teams just trying to get more revenue?
Right. We're just trying to get to that goal.
Yeah, and help people buy.
Mm-hmm.
So what we think is happening, and folks, let us know if you see this to be true. Marketing and sales today don't really share this North Star goal of revenue. Mm-hmm. I think we're both revenue engines. What else do you see?
So we'll see, and I'm sure all the other sales leaders on will say, marketing says, I gave you all of these MQLs or these amazing leads, and then the sales team is saying, well, I don't want to follow up on these. And we have to make sure that we're sharing the same goal, and ultimately it's what's best for the prospect and the customer that's coming to the site. And that's what I think we do a really good job here at Drift, is we're trying to identify how we can best communicate with the prospects, as opposed to having two separate siloed goals across two different pieces of the organization.
Yeah, we'll dive into how to actually do that today, specifically exactly what Michelle's team does today to actually use the conversation as the cornerstone. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of optimization for each individual, but not the buyer, going back to that buyer centricity. And we believe you could break it down simply by looking at this image.
Right.
I mean, if you think about a traditional sales process, and we'll actually talk about this in a moment, the sales process is a inherently business-centric thing. Mm-hmm. You built a sales process for your business. Did you, though, ask yourself, did you build it for the buyer, Michelle?
What's best for the customer?
Yeah, I mean, when you're thinking about buying something that's somewhat expensive, you want to feel confident in that purchase.
Right.
Like, what does your sales team do today to really make sure that it's more of the right-hand side versus the left-hand side?
Yeah, so it starts with, we use Drift, so we have a personalized conversation with the individual most of the time when they come to the site, and we talk to them like a human. Mm. We don't, badger them with a bunch of questions right off the bat. We talk to them like we're talking to a friend, or, we humanize every single conversation that we're having.
Making very authentic and personalized.
Exactly.
And what we're saying actually now today then is marketing is getting more involved in the sales process. Mm-hmm. And sales is getting involved more in the marketing process.
Right.
So we really believe between the two of us who work hand in hand that the conversation is how you bring the teams together. And my job as a marketing person now today is to actually start these conversations. And your job is to have the conversation, would you say?
Yes, exactly. So you guys give us the people to have conversations with, and we follow up.
And do you believe the conversation, like a conversation qualified lead, is the best thing a salesperson could have today? And if you do, why?
So yes, number one, that's one of your goals, but it's also one of my team's goals is to follow up on those conversation qualified leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to do that in a timely fashion, but also we like to have a human conversation with those qualified leads. And it's important because you want to get to them in a timely manner, because there's a million stats out there that say, you need to reach out within the first 5 minutes. But by doing so, personalize your outreach in those conversations, which is really important. And you guys do a great job on the marketing side, providing us additional information on what the person did on the site, what they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And that provides us with more ammo to have a more personalized conversation.
Gotcha. So if we go back a couple of slides, again, we believe the conversations are how you bring the teams together. Marketing should be gold on starting conversations,
mm-hmm.
which that means you're going to still generate qualified leads, qualified accounts.
Right.
It's just using the conversation as the what do you call it? Like the catalyst or the
catalyst, yeah.
The catalyst to make it more buyer centric.
Exactly. You want to make it more buyer centric. Like you guys provide us with, okay, this is exactly what the individual did on the site.
Yeah.
Let's say they were on our pricing page. We're not going to reach out and say, hey, we noticed that you were on our blog. It's what about our pricing do you have questions about?
Exactly.
So you tailor your responses and those conversations exactly to what that individual is doing.
And that's where it's different than content, where content is used everywhere today, Michelle,
right.
But it's a one-way conversation.
Exactly.
You're broadcasting something out that you've said before because you published something, but now with the conversation, you can actually engage with that person and understand a little bit more about them.
Yes.
And then sales
Michelle,
can have that.
I'm curious. So I work with a lot of marketing and sales leaders, right? And everybody's always talking about like, how can we make a deal go faster? People are obsessed with sales velocity. People want to make a meeting happen fast, like one call and a meeting, please. One of the reasons I love using the conversation ready idea as like the catalyst for like, let's actually start this, is because you can't tell a prospect when they're ready for a conversation. Only they can decide that. Like you can't say, oh, no, your behavior score is 75. You're ready. Like, trust me.
Right.
It's really up to them. And that's why I love this. I'm kind of curious, Michelle, like I'm sure you've worked in sales orgs that have used that in the past. What's the experience like coming from a world where you have a booked meeting because an SDR just got somebody to a yes, to where now you have people who are actually ready to have a conversation? What's the difference?
Yeah, so it's actually using our own tool, Drift. The difference is you can get to them in real time when they're on the site. So as opposed to them filling out a form, that's what I'm traditionally used to outside of Drift, is they fill out a form and you try and figure out their behavior score based off of what they put in the form or their pricing inquiry. And then here's Drift, where you can actually just say like, hey, what's going on? You want to have a conversation? And some people, it's okay if you don't want to have a conversation, but it gives you an indication of like how ready they are to buy. But most people like it. They're like, oh, hey, what's going on? I actually just have a quick question. Can you tell me what your pricing is for the premium plan? You just give them the pricing and then you back off. And that's totally different from what I'm traditionally used to, where you are basing it off of that behavior score. So think about, I like to think about it as you have everything at your fingertips, right, on your phone. So you have Instagram, you have Twitter, you have LinkedIn, and you can ask or accomplish anything within seconds of just like going and using your phone. And that's what Drift actually helps you accomplish, where you can have those really quick conversations, and it doesn't necessarily have to be going down that like, let me ask you a million sales questions before I can actually schedule that call with you. It's just, oh, you have a pricing question? Here you go, boom. And then most people, like, I don't know about you, but that's how I like to buy things or look things up. I'm looking for that information now, and that's what we provide you.
And not to mention, like a salesperson would probably rather jump on someone who's saying, yes, I want to have a conversation with you, versus go through a list of leads that's prioritized by some score. Right,
Exactly.
Michelle?
Right. So, no, this person's hot. They just actually came in and asked a question.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So here's a question then, like you still have to, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm totally off base here. I assume there has to be some kind of like qualification at some point, right? Like is you have some questions, some things you need to know about the prospect, like how do you fit that? And maybe I'm jumping ahead too, but how do you fit that? If you're just having a natural like coffee shop style conversation with the buyer, how do you fit in, okay, but actually buyer, here's like what I actually need to know to help you get to your goal of like launching Drift on your site?
Yeah, it's really important. I think there's a stat that out there that says, ask around 11 to 14 questions, but across the entire sales conversation, as opposed to asking, 15 or more conversations within the first 10 minutes of the discovery call. I mean, we still do our standard discovery and demo qualification, but it's having the even flow as opposed to just asking every single qualifying question within the first 10 minutes of the call. That does come with experience. You have to understand where the conversation is going, but tossing in a few questions here and there as you're building rapport, as you're going through the discovery phase, as opposed to just all in front of the call.
Okay, so it's more about like how you actually have that conversation, not necessarily about whether you have it or not. And I know you're going to get to some tips on like how to actually make conversations really valuable. So I'll let you get there.
Yeah, so on this slide now, we're going to start to get into the tactics, and we believe conversational marketing and conversational sales should follow these three core principles or tenets, if you want to call them that. First off, how authentic are you in both starting and then actually, for example, what you just said, Colin, asking questions, right? Like, and that's just like being real and being like another real person trying to help someone buy, but doing it with your own brand, voice, tone, whatever makes your brand your brand.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
yeah, so everyone's different. So
100%. Like, think about, and also it's like who you are as a person.
Right.
Like your own actual style.
Right.
Personalized is using the stuff that Michelle talked about, using as much information, as much data as you can to make sure that you get to or when you're at a point in the sales process, you're making it as personalized to that specific time in the sales process and what you've already have found out about the prospect.
Right. And that goes all into like just having authentic questions and identifying, what that individual's goals are.
Exactly. And then timely is like, it's not about you anymore. You need to be ready. Yeah, it's about them. You need to be ready to have that conversation whenever they want to pick that back up. It could be in the very beginning of the sales process or the very end. You need to be ready across all of your marketing assets, especially your website. And with how you think about like managing a sales process, when someone wants to actually talk to you, you can't like ignore them for more than a little bit of time these days, or they're going to go somewhere else. Yep. You might have missed that deal.
Right.
So let's dive into some of these examples. So here's just an example of an authentic email. This is from Mike. You sent me this one. Do you want to unpack like where this is in the sales process?
Yeah, so this is a second touch where the rep does a little bit of research on the specific individual that they're reaching out to, and then goes to their site specifically and calls out certain aspects of the site where they think that we can improve, or some areas where they have identified maybe a gap in their flow that is hindering their prospects of getting information from them. And he actually used a video on this site too, but you can't see it. But it's super short, really pointed, and personalized.
Yeah, so sorry, this is Dan sending Mike an email about it. And like, I love the video because it's showing Dan as an authentic, real person, right? This is actually a GIF. If this was an email that was in your inbox, you would see this bottom circle moving. We'll actually show this in action later in the webinar. But like, I think every point you made is spot on. And it's also very short, just like you would experience a message from a friend via, say, like iMessage or a text message. Right? You're not seeing this long, drawn-out email anymore.
Right, exactly.
So that's an authentic email, and this is in the beginning of the sales process.
Beginning of the sales process, yeah.
How about a personalized web experience? This is actually something you can do with conversational marketing now, where Emily is the account owner of this account. And AppLinks is coming back to the website, and Emily is now ready to start a conversation, help that person who's at AppLinks back out. You use this all the time.
All the time. So we have named accounts, and we're trying to get these named accounts. And it's pretty amazing where you can see it on a rep's face after they're sending, 10 emails to an individual and wow, they're on the site. It's like such a victory that you know that all that hard work and the outreach is actually working because they're on the site. And this just gives you the opportunity to reach out to them more personalized than just a standard email.
And that's, again, the alignment between sales and marketing, where we believe conversations is that glue, is that synergistic catalyst, a lot of like buzzwords right there.
Yeah.
That brings it back, because marketing is typically the team that's going to implement this.
Exactly.
And then finally, going back to timely, so we showed you a authentic example, a personalized example. Timely, actually in this case, Michelle, Emily, that salesperson, is not just ready. Like, she's not available.
Right.
Maybe nighttime, maybe, who knows.
Exactly.
But now we have a chat bot to pick up for the salesperson in case that person came to the site when Emily's not available, and now she could schedule a meeting, that website visitor from Apple Links, or leave Emily a message.
Yeah, exactly. And if you think about it, depending on how each buyer likes to interact with sales reps, I can tell you most people don't want to go back and forth with a sales rep. You don't even have to talk to anyone. You can just simply schedule a meeting based off of your availability, or just leave a message like, hey, Emily, I'm sorry I missed you, but like, I'm not interested.
Very simple.
Type of thing. Super simple.
And very buyer-centric.
Exactly.
But again, it's about the conversation. Like, you're doing this through a very, natural human way to communicate these days because of the explosion of messaging.
Right.
Any questions, folks? Let us know if we have questions. We're going to keep going through a lot more content. We're going to be playing some videos too from actual salespeople who do this every single day. Just let us know if you have questions, though.
So I had a quick question that this might be a good time to talk about. This question came to me by email from Jill at Mahalo Commissions. She asked, and it's on this topic of like being authentic and kind of communicating casually. So how do you, if you're talking to somebody in the C-suite, I think a lot of reps get intimidated or maybe even a little like starstruck. So how do you avoid defaulting to like the overly formal, yes, sir, please, sir, yes, madam, kind of mode of communication when you're maybe starting your career in sales but trying to sell to somebody in the C-suite?
Yeah, and the individuals that are in the C-suite that we're typically selling to, you have like 30 seconds to a minute to either gauge their attention or even get a response out of them. So it just be quick and treat them as though you would treat another colleague or the VP that you're speaking with. We use text messaging a lot, and that actually works with a lot of the C-suite. So they can respond to you really quickly as they're running to another meeting or as they're jumping on the next flight, and they can just say like, hey, yes or no, I'm going to buy, or just send me the contract. And we're very quick, and that's the way that we tell the reps to treat every single person that they're reaching out to, is like, just be a human, especially with the C-suite, because they don't have that time to just be like, hello, sir, I noticed that this, and this. No, hey, I got your contact information from your VP. They actually asked me to reach out. I have the Panda Doc. Can I send it to you? Type of thing.
I mean, today's day and age, I would do everything your instincts tell you to do to make it more formal and business-centric, and like invert that. Just do the opposite, because it just doesn't matter anymore.
It's ease of use for majority of the people that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
How can we get it to them fast, and how can we make their life easier?
It actually goes to this slide. It goes, how to be more empathetic in your sales process.
Right.
Like, who wants to read a 3-paragraph email, Michelle, and call in when you could just get to the point. Like, get to the point instead of writing these perfect sentences. Just, I would think of it like messaging a friend on your phone. Like, you're going to send a quick text message. That's how you should be writing a lot of these sales emails these days. Obviously, if there's a sales follow-up, you might want to be a little more thorough.
Exactly.
Right? To a meeting.
Right. When you're trying to get that meeting. But if you have already built a rapport or there's been an introduction, you just be a human.
One of the reasons, so you showed that great email from Dan earlier to Mike. And when we write content, like I spend a lot of time editing for Sales Hacker, what we always tell people is the job of the title is to get people to click. The job of the first sentence is to get people to read the second sentence, and so on. And if they have trouble finding value after they've just taken a few of those steps, title, the first sentence to second sentence, they're gone. And I'm the same way. When I get like a long email, sometimes I'm actually interested in, like, I would like to talk to the person. get to the ask for me. I can't even find the ask in 3 paragraphs, so I'm gone. So I love the idea of just like, let's keep it simple.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And again, I think empathy is something we talk a lot about as it relates to conversational marketing and sales. I think it's a lost thing that we as marketers and salespeople have forgotten about because we are so obsessed with our own metric and we don't think there's another person just like us on the other side of this.
Right.
So please be empathetic. And let's talk about sales processes now. So, hey, folks, describe your sales process to us. Like, can you do that in the chat pane? Like, give us a couple of examples of a sales process. I'd love to learn about the sales process you folks use because this is a huge sticking point to making the shift of using conversations, Michelle, like as the cornerstone of your sales process.
Yeah, it's really hard actually to make that shift.
Because like, as people type in, like, what's some of the sales processes you've used in the past? Like, how have they gone?
I've done them all. So the Sandler, force management, we created our own here in Drift. We just implemented Medic last week. So when it comes down to a sales process, we've really switched it up based off of having that conversation. But then as a sales leader, going through a forecast review or trying to understand, is this deal going to close and getting the reps to do that, it's hard to balance the two and have the metrics, the economic buyer, the decision-making process. So we've dabbled a lot into it, but I think it's also really important to have a pretty solid sales process.
So actually, I think we're saying the same thing, but I'd say a sales process is important. I actually think a sales framework is what you should use today to actually make your sales experience, the buying experience, I should say, more buyer-centric.
Absolutely.
So you said Medic.
Yeah.
This is actually a framework.
It's a framework.
It's not a process.
No.
Like a process would be, I'm going to have to call you this amount of times, which is fine. There's an SLA. That's okay. But fine. That's fine. Then I'm going to have you go through these exact series of calls to get you to a point of being a customer, right? Like you have to do a demo. You have to do a negotiating call. And you have to do it in this timeline on my terms. I'm going to pitch you at this point.
Right.
That's completely should be thrown out now.
Right. It's all about the person that you're selling to.
Explain Medic. How are you folks now like thinking about using Medic as it relates to using conversations?
That's a great question. So we just rolled it out, but it's also, it goes back to understanding why the person came to Drift or why they wanted to take that call. Not a lot of people are going to take 30 to 45 minutes out of their day to see a demo of a product that they have no interest in, right? So it's identifying that, but you have to tie it back to them, the customer, and not necessarily understanding metrics, economic buyer, decision maker, all of that. It goes back to the why are you having this conversation, and then listening. That's the huge part that most sales reps do a pretty terrible job at.
I just think like some people have given us their sales process. Thank you so much, right? Like it's discovery call, demo, pricing review, tying it all back to pain, which is great. The discovery call, negotiation.
Yeah.
That could all happen though in 1 call, 2 calls, 3 calls, or 10 calls. I don't think you should structure it just to like a call sequence.
Exactly.
And that's where I think a framework is better than holding yourself accountable to a process.
Right. The process is once you get them on that call, for us, it's provide them with what they need, what they're looking for.
Because again, think about yourself buying something. We're going to talk about an example from you in a moment, but when was the last thing you bought? A car. Like, would you want to be told exactly when you had to talk to the salesperson at that dealership about how to buy that car? That's what we do to people buying B2B things today.
Yeah, exactly. And that is not, that they're going to walk away. They're going to go somewhere else because it goes back to how we typically buy things now is you want it now, you want the answer now. Yeah. And if you have to put them through this like terrible process and discovery phase, then they're going to go elsewhere. Think
about buying a engagement ring, right? A new crib for your first baby,
right?
Like those are considered purchases. It's the same thing should be applied now to B2B, right? Those good salespeople are obviously getting some information about you to help you make the best buying decision, but they're not putting you through this very specific rigid process.
Right.
You know, one of the things I'm seeing these days more and more, and I think it's kind of where the cutting edge is at, and I think it's where you guys are at, is let's say, even if you could just walk into a dealership, with a check and buy a car without any of that annoying back and forth and paperwork. It's still actually kind of hard to buy a car because of the things you have to do for yourself beforehand. Like, you have to do a lot of thinking. It's a considered purchase. It's a lot of work to be a buyer, even if salespeople make it super, super easy. Being a buyer is still kind of a tricky thing, especially for big enterprise purchases or software where there are multiple people impacted. So like, my best thing is you can take a framework like Medic, or Melissa uses MedPick, and using conversations with your buyer, set up a process with them, like in conjunction with them. Like, say, okay, so look, I don't know how things work on your end. Here's how things sometimes work on my end. Like, let's plan this together. What kind of steps do you want to take, and add to it over time and adjust it.
No, I love that.
That's exactly what we do. So you have to listen and understand what their process is on their end. So you don't make it unnatural for them of, okay, so we're going to have this demo, and then after the demo, we need to do this, this, and this. It's like, well, what is the prospect telling you that they need to do on their end? What's their process? Because especially if you're working with someone on the lower level, like a manager who needs to work it up to the director and VP of marketing, you need to help them bring it up the funnel, as opposed to dictating to them the way that you're going to run your process on your sales side, because it makes your life easier as a sales rep.
Yep. Michelle, how do you guys work that? Like, do you share a document with your buyers, like, to cooperate and plan that out? Is it like an Excel sheet, or you just kind of plan it out on a call with them? How do you do that?
Yeah, we outlined it in an email, and we back it into specific timelines that are based off of their specific goals internally. So if they have to have Drift live October 31st, then we back it into what they need in order to get it done on their end, and how we can help them move it up to be live on October 31st. And then throughout the sales cycle, we then check in and make sure we're still on that timeline. And if we need to adjust, then we all mutually agree on adjusting the timeline throughout the sales process.
I love working back from the date they want it live too. It's just it's not the date that you want the deal closed. It's when their problem is solved. Yeah, exactly. I love that.
We all want the deal now, but it depends on when the prospect's ready to buy.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah, and then that's, again, where marketing has to come into play, where it's like when they come back to that website, and when those probably multiple buyers come back to your website, because it's a lot of buying committees, especially from what you folks listed out of what you're selling, like, you need to be ready to, again, have another conversation or start a new conversation with a new buyer when they come back to your site, and then bring the salesperson into that conversation.
Right, exactly.
That's the whole, again, point around using conversations as the cornerstone. Here's another framework. I bet some of you folks know this one, the Listed, Acknowledge, Explore framework. And it goes exactly to what you and Colin were just talking about, and what others are saying, where it starts with listening.
Listening is number one.
100%. Acknowledging what their situation is.
Mm-hmm.
And then exploring. I love the looking back, like, or starting from the buyer's date and working backwards from that.
Right, exactly. And then once you listen, you can acknowledge, and then you can, I like to tell my reps, like, peel back the layers of the onion, and that's also like the exploring part after you identify what we can help them with or what they're looking for. And you have to start listening. You have to start listening to what they're telling you in the beginning of the call.
I love it. And you really think the golden rule of selling is respectful?
Yeah, absolutely. I had this idea because I saw two major brands commercials, and they didn't pitch their brands. They didn't pitch anything else but the golden rule, and why they're positioning their brand as, we're going to treat others the way that they want to be treated, which I thought was really powerful, because no one likes to buy that in a way that from someone that didn't treat them with respect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying to get my reps to do as well.
Love it. Which you've broken down into these 5 things.
Yeah, so you have to be genuine. Don't be greedy. You have to value people's time. Make it easy and convenient for them, and don't make the buyer uncomfortable. It's pretty easy to say, but it's pretty difficult to keep in mind when you're trying to get that deal in, and you forecasted it, you committed it, but also the buyer isn't ready, and you're trying to get them to buy in an unnatural way, which I think is goes back to the golden rule, like, be respectful of your buyer and their time.
That's where I think a framework can be very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
to actually, like, uncover the why, the how, and the what.
Right.
And now the who, when you think about buying committees.
Exactly. And there's a lot of buying committees, and if you don't identify the who, then you're kind of screwing yourself of the forecasting, and then you start to become greedy, and then you're not genuine, and then it all goes, it's a vicious cycle.
Interesting. Yeah, it could get out of control pretty fast.
Yes.
All right. Let's talk about a few more things, and then we got some really interesting ways to use what we think is the ultimate conversational sales, I would say, strategy and tool?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we also have this, or you have this idea and this strategy of this thing you call the Golden Nugget, the tie back.
The tie back. Yeah. Yeah.
As the sales process starts to maybe unravel, you use the tie back and you teach all your reps this.
Yeah. So I probably say, well, tell me about the Golden Nugget 50 times a week, because I always ask them, especially when we start to lose a deal, or not lose a deal, but the deal's now pushing out 2 weeks. Right? Tell me what the Golden Nugget was. What's the why? And you can gather the why by listening at the beginning of the call or throughout the call as you're uncovering their specific needs. Why did they take the call? How can we help them? Like, why are they going to implement Drift? What's their timeline? What's your timeline? Tell me the Golden Nugget. And you always want to have that Golden Nugget in your back pocket to toss back in their face and be like, hey, you told me that you wanted to get live on October 31st. What happened? But without the Golden Nugget, there's nothing that you can do to have a natural conversation outside of just being greedy and impatient and then disrespectful.
Yeah, you wanted to generate X more leads by this date. What's changed?
What's changed, exactly. And it's hard to find the Golden Nugget because when you're not listening, and that's really important.
I think it also goes back to peeling back the onion layers.
Exactly.
It's probably not the first or second thing they're going to say.
No, you have to ask the questions and not necessarily look at the questions that you have to ask just to make sure you fill out that Salesforce report. You have to do it while you're listening and moving through the conversation.
Goes back to the dangers of just following a strict sales process.
Right.
And like just checking boxes.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about your experience buying this thing.
Yes. So terrible experience. Walk in to buy a couch and I tell them, okay, well, I have a toddler. I have a 100-pound dog. I'm looking for a sectional living room. Keep in mind, toddler, 100-pound dog. And like you have to listen to those three key things to make my buying experience easier. What happens? I'm looking at a $10,000 white couch because they did not listen to anything I said, and it just was a terrible experience. And I walked out thinking they didn't listen. They were just focusing on their quota, what they needed to get accomplished. And this sales rep just was, let me show you this area. It's, the South Shore-esque couch, and that's where you're going to be living. And okay, well, I'm going to destroy this couch, and I need something that is more accessible for my family than what your comp is going to be.
So would you say they didn't follow these, we're going to unpack 5 things now, these 5 principles? Yeah. Okay, so let's go through each one. So we have these 5 conversational sales principles. Maybe we mentioned the A and the L there, but 5 conversational sales principles. The first one is authentic. Mm-hmm. So when you were buying this couch, was the salesperson operating in a real manner, like a genuine manner?
No, not at all. It just came like a snake out of the grass right at me, okay, one thing on their mind.
So you definitely went to your competitor probably then.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like he or she personalized the experience.
Not at all. No, did not tailor their approach to the things that I was telling him.
What about timely in this matter? Like, how urgent was this couch purchase? Was it urgent or not?
It wasn't. It was not urgent. They also didn't ask, so it was another indication that they were just really focused on them instead of myself when I was purchasing it. Yeah.
Okay, so you heard those 3 already, folks, but there's 2 more. How was the education they provided you?
No education whatsoever. So I went to their competitor, and then they educated me on the stuff that you can spray on the sofa to avoid any stains, and the fabric that is better for spills and dirt, and they educated me on the better purchase, and this individual didn't.
Interesting. Then finally, this one probably isn't a surprise, like the conversational nature of it.
Yeah, no conversation whatsoever. Just, hey, let me show you the couches that we have over here on the more expensive side of the room.
and maybe needed to hit a number or something. Carla has a comment. I like the Golden Nugget. So she likes your Golden Nugget, Michelle, and the why. In fact, I will sometimes ask a prospect at the beginning of a discovery call why they agreed to meet with me to explore potential alignments.
Yeah, I love that. Why? Like, why did you take this call, right? I love that.
And that actually hits upon the person. Like, you can become very much more personalized then in your future sales outreaches.
Exactly.
With this person if they go dark.
Right, because you can always tie it back to that original why.
Yep, and then like how you can provide them more value through education.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Exactly.
So we believe there's one thing that brings these 5 things to life better than anything today now in sales. And I don't think, Michelle, a lot of salespeople use this.
No, not a lot. But in their defense, not a lot of people are necessarily comfortable, and I think it's
fair.
That's totally fair. I'm just getting that out there.
But do you feel like a lot of people are comfortable with this in their personal lives?
Yes.
So what's
the difference?
What's the difference? And we believe it's video. So video is this powerful thing. It's a mega trend. We talk a lot about here at Drift as it relates to both conversational marketing and sales. And it's truly eating the world. I mean, YouTube is the second biggest search engine. Mm-hmm. I'm showing my phone again. You might have seen me on LinkedIn. I do more video for business and personal things than ever before. Mm-hmm. It's one of the best ways to retain information.
It is.
From a teaching standpoint, I have a slight background in education. And actually, at the end of the day, sales is just trying to educate someone on something.
Right.
To buy. So let's talk about video now. So we have 3 scenarios: prospecting, prospecting, working opportunities, and closing deals. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go through each one of these right now with you folks. So here are 3 different ways we believe, and folks, you'll get the slides tomorrow, right, Colin?
Yep. Yeah, everybody, you'll get the slides and a recording, actually. So if you found your golden nugget from the presentation, you want to go back or share it with a friend, you'll have all this.
So we have these 3 plays, and we actually have 2 reps at the end of this section that are on, I think, your team potentially, mm-hmm. that talk about this. The attention grabber, the no-face play, the recent news. Out of these 3, which is your favorite for prospecting? Just curious.
The attention grabber.
Why is that?
Because it is specifically talking about something that individual cares about. I don't know if we have this example, but I had a rep who went on a prospect's Twitter and identified that he was into craft beer. And the reps wrote 2-3 sentences about craft beer, and this guy was so pumped up that he found another craft beer enthusiast, that someone else was involved in craft beer as much as he was, that he took a meeting right away. And that's important because you took the time to do the research, you took the time to be personal and authentic, and you just went to his Twitter page. So it only took him like a minute to understand that this guy loved craft beer. That's
so interesting. Let's go to the next one. Working opportunities. We have 3 more. This is like in the middle part of the sales process.
Yeah, so I would probably say the second chance. Mm-hmm. You don't need to hop on another call. The last thing a prospect wants to do is get on another call. It's easier for them to ship a video off to maybe the decision maker or another individual that's going to be part of the process. Mm-hmm. And then just ship a 2-minute video highlighting what we talked about. Or if you forgot a question or forgot to tell them something, it saves everyone a lot of time, but you also have that interaction, that human interaction face-to-face where you can see the rep.
Exactly, that's the authenticity. Exactly. So video hits upon the authenticity. It's personalized to each person because you're basically, in most of these cases, sending a one-to-one video. Right. You can send a one-to-many video, you could, but it's probably better to do one-to-one. Right. It's timely because it's tying back to something. Either especially in this case, right? Like if you go back, like the recent news one, right? Or the attention grabber.
Yes.
It's a timely type.
You can use it in so many different scenarios.
It's educational, probably.
Yes, 9 times out of the 10.
I mean, you're probably giving them some type of tip.
Yes, you're not even asking them for something.
So you might be asking yourself, well, how is this conversational? Well, we believe you actually can use videos to have more conversations. So don't take our word for it. Let's talk to some reps that have done this. So actually, we're going to spin up a video really quick This one is from, who's this from, Alan?
Alan.
Okay, let's share this video really quick with everyone. Let's make sure you folks can hear this. Let's try it out.
Hey, Michelle, Alan here. So making you a quick video on how I use Drift Video. First way would be, typically I wouldn't have this like little portal here with my face on the first one. It's just kind of a quick, 20-second or so GIF that I create of me going through the buyer's journey, whether that's kind of mousing over their current chat solution and then hitting request a demo, and waiting for that page to load, let alone walking through how long of a form it is, that kind of thing. And then just, so no sound or anything like that, just creating a GIF. The other way would be what I'm doing now, where I have a little portal, it's showing my face, and I'm talking to the camera as I walk through the site, and I kind of pick out areas of improvement where I know that they could really increase lead conversion. And then another way is just sending one-off videos of just my face saying something like, hey, congrats on your recent funding. So hopefully that was helpful.
So there you go. And then I want to show you actually, though, let me go back to the slides really quick. I want to show you what's so special about this. Look at this, everyone. That person watching that video could have a conversation with Ellen right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I used it on one of my reps yesterday just to see if they were paying attention. And I was chatting with them from my phone too. So it's pretty cool.
It's incredible. And we have one more quick example. Let's go to the next one. Who's this from?
Kieran.
Videos, two really probably solid ways that I use it. One is how I post some of my biggest deals here, like eCornell and Live Tiles, is videos directly to the CMO. Even if there's an evaluation already going on, already talked to a champ, or it's just straight up cold, I will be sending them content, and then I will send them a specific video of like, hey, this is why you should take a look at Drift and have so-and-so look at us. The other way I use it is post-demo. So always to get that demo and video shared internally, which ends up generating more interest, also usually results in more people joining the second call. I'd say those are the two biggest ways I use it. Not using it too much for prospecting unless it's directly to that person themselves and my emails haven't caught on. So it's usually like my third or fourth trick for when I'm trying to get in with the decision maker or economic buyer.
What do you think? Useful?
Very useful.
Let's go back to the slides. How many reps are using video that are part of your team right now?
Every single one of them.
Are they being successful with it?
Yeah, so we actually have them do it a third or fourth touch, and we do it throughout the entire sales process. So we'll send a contract to someone, we'll actually walk them through the contract, and we'll ask to send it to the DM or the signer, and that gives us an idea of, okay, if you don't want me to send a video to the signer of how we've gone through the red lines of this contract, then it gives you an idea of like, oh, maybe they're not actually going to buy, or the signer has no idea this is going to be coming down for them to sign. It also just really quick, if they have a question about something, instead of hopping on a call, we'll send them a video instead.
I love it.
Just save everyone's time.
And here's another framework, Michelle. We have one more, folks. The video piece of using it as part of your sales process, it hits upon engage, understand, and recommend so well. So let me explain. Engage is done in a real, authentic, personal way, right? It engages them. It's like, wow, that person just sent me a video. Oh, there's a GIF. That got my attention. I want to click on that video. It's an image. Boom. You don't have to write up this long email anymore. It's a minute. How long would it take you to write a minute-long video, right? Email.
Right.
Versus just recording a minute.
Just record it 30 seconds. Right. Everyone's happy.
And for the person watching it too, right? Versus reading that email.
Right.
It's a video. It's going to help the buyer understand more about you. Right, so that's shared understanding.
That human interaction.
Human interaction. And then you can throw out recommendations in the video, just like those two gentlemen said.
Right, exactly.
And they might be able to actually recommend, the buyer might be able to recommend something back to you, because now they can have a conversation with you as they watch the video or right after that video.
And if they have a question following up, they can just chat with you right there.
And this framework is how we think about like actually building trust, because we believe trust and value. You were talking to me about this before we or as we were prepping for this webinar, is the most important thing these days.
Right. And they don't want to buy something from someone that they don't trust and that they don't believe that you're going to add value. So if you're not going to give them the value, and if you're also greedy and you're pushing them down a sales process that they don't necessarily agree with, then odds are it's not a big deal.
And the way you build trust is to humanize it. We've talked about that a lot today. And it's really just, it's them versus you.
Right.
It's not about you anymore. It's so hard to think about that because we're all very selfish people.
Yes.
Just human nature. But like, it's really about the buyer, and that's how you can create a more buyer-centric, buyer-friendly sales process. So that's what we have for you folks today.
Great.
I love the idea of using, so I used to manage an account management team at an agency actually right down the street from you guys in Boston. And I used to have account reps would ask me sometimes to look at their email. Oh, can you look at this email before I send it off? I just want to make sure it's okay. And I started to come up with a rule. Okay, if you have to ask somebody, or if you even think to yourself, should I send this email as is, it should be a phone call. My thought being like, it's really easy to be misunderstood in email. It's like not a good way to be asynchronous. Email is really only good for like sending agendas, sending follow-ups, and sharing documents, right? Like it's really not that great of a way to communicate. But I wish I could go back in time and have them sending videos instead of phone calls, because like phone calls are hard to schedule and you can't really do it asynchronously. This is so much cooler. I also really love the idea. What's the second rep that showed his video? What's his name? Kieran. So cool that he's sending like a short demo over.
Mm-hmm.
I know like sometimes we want to control the demo and control who sees it and when. So I love that he's just like putting it out there in the world for people on the buyer side to see it, and not, under any illusion that he can control every single little step of it.
Yeah, and actually it gives them a little an idea ahead of time what they're going to be looking at on the call, or even what we do. So it might not be a good fit for everyone, and that's okay.
Yeah, and maybe it lets them identify like things that they're more or less interested in, so you can tailor the full demo to their interests better.
Right.
This is super cool, guys.
Any questions, folks? We're happy to answer any questions about anything we covered. All right, on your site to get the book, it seems like you get to interact with the bot. Is that how you do it? You could. That gives you the PDF. Yes, so to download the PDF version, you would actually just ask the Drift bot to send you the book digitally, or you could get it by going to each website page. It's completely ungated. It's free. But yeah, if you want to take the PDF with you, you just got to go to the bot. And the beautiful thing about that, Michelle, is that bot now has started a conversation with you.
Exactly.
And potentially can take you down a path if you're interested in maybe learning more about Drift or want to talk to someone in sales.
Right.
I like bots because there's optionality. Like a forum, it's a single path.
Right. You could ask them about the weather in Boston if you want, and the reps they'll respond.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
just want to chat with someone.
Definitely. This particular book is not a physical version. It's just a digital version as a PDF, Melissa. We have a couple physical books at drift.com/books, but this one is just a digital PDF. You're very welcome, Joel.
Is there data on how
Is there data?
people like bots versus email?
Bots versus email.
Do we have that somewhere?
I think it's slightly different.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
different because we do use email in our sales process. And the bots come into play when you're on our site or if you see a video. So email is still really powerful.
Yeah, email today is trying to get to be more about like getting a reply back.
Yeah.
Or if you don't get a reply back and they click back to your website, that's where you would have a bot.
You can have a chat. Yeah.
Exactly, where you can have either a salesperson who owns that account ready to talk to someone, or if it's not a named account or someone's not ready, you could have a bot, a chat bot, be ready to help that person out.
Help or qualify.
Exactly.
Sheila, the one thing I would say about bots versus email is that no matter, even if you found some research that said one is good for one situation or one is great for this type of buyer, I would just try it yourself, because every best practice is only a best practice for average players. And I mean, nobody wants to be average. So just find what works best for you. And if you're the one testing things and your competitors aren't, then you're going to be the one finding the edge.
I agree.
Yeah, good.
All right, I think that might be it for questions. Thanks so much for the awesome questions and input. Everybody was awesome. Great questions, super smart people on the webinar today. Mark and Michelle, really appreciate you stopping by, giving us all these insights. I got a lot to chew on.
Thank you.
Very welcome. Take care, folks.
And we'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.